Okay, so now that I have kind of my basic layout, let's see and try and start thinking about creating a grid for this. So I'm not so sure that I like this two column situation here. I might just go and remove that, so I have to kind of make sure this is clicked on. I don't know. I can't tell. It's kind of hard to read two columns, but it could be cool. Okay, so I could decide that I want all my type to be kind of in a corner like this. Obviously, you can do crazier things. You can modify the shape of your text box and do some fun, crazy things like this. Why not? Like, this is an interesting idea going off the grid. But I haven't really thought that much about images yet or anything like that. But if I want to kind of start thinking about a grid, I can go into my master page. And I think in my case, I feel like the margins are a little wide. So I'm going to, so make sure that I'm clicking both the master pages. So if I only, say I'm clicking only one of them and I go ahead and change the margins, it's only going to apply to this page, which could be a choice that you're making intentionally, but you want to make sure that that's a choice. So in my margins and columns, now I clicked both over here. I'm going into margins and columns, and I'm going to go ahead and make my margins smaller. I'll make all of them smaller, and then maybe I'll make the inside less because I don't want the type to go too far in on the inside. I'm okay with it going kind of to the edge on the corner, on all the other edges. But since this folds in, you don't want to go too far in. Another thing you can do is actually add columns here. So if you know you're going to flow your type in columns like we saw, you could do something like this where you decide my type is going to go only in these columns over here. So if I clicked OK here, then let's say I want to, I'll just make 2 new pages to show you at the end here. So I have this. I can go ahead and load some type. So I'll just load this again. So it's copied on. And when I put it in the first column, I have to first put it in. But then once I have it in that column, it'll kind of automatically float right to where my text box is. So this could be really useful for designing a magazine spread, right? Like you can have your type always at the top there and then your images below. So this could definitely be a move you want to make. And maybe in this case, like, well, my type, if I'm looking at the line length, it's too short, so my type needs to go and be way smaller for this kind of design to work. But actually, it's still pretty big, like when I look at it like this. So I often do use the margins and columns, like multiple columns. This can be an interesting move, right? Your images here, when I bring in images later on, I could have a separate grid for my images. So if I go now into my pages in the A master, I can still have this for my type, but then above that create guides where I'm creating a bunch of rows. And people say if your kind of grid looks nice, likely your image, your layout will look nice. So in this case, I'll do fit guides to page because I want it to be kind of a separate world, but I still want it to be closely related. Maybe I'll keep, I don't know, let's make an interesting looking grid. Does that look good? Looks fairly even. Okay, and I can adjust the gutter, which is how much space is between each line of this grid. So I'll click OK here. So then if I go back to this kind of layout I quickly started, okay, maybe I realize this doesn't quite work so well if I'm going to put tiny images here. But just for the sake of time, I will leave it as is, but you might try and see how do I align it in a way where it feels more in line, but I don't know. So then here I could either go back to the top and bring in these images that I know I have. So I could just copy them and I'll paste them down here. And then I could play around with, how they fit with this grid. So this doesn't fit. So in order to make it fit here, I'm holding, I'm clicking on, so I can either bring the image in. So here it is. Because of this, this is like a very, the image has to stay at this size. I can't alter the size of it. Maybe I'll just focus on the height of it. And I think, it's kind of small. Maybe I'll make it bigger. But actually, yeah, I feel like I want this grid to align to this. It feels too off grid. So maybe I'll go back to my master page and try and make sure that when I create guides, again, I'm going to remove existing guides, that they're going to match up more with what I have up there. And maybe I have to fit guides to margins because it's kind of a bind where it won't function the same way. Anyway, I'll click OK. Then maybe I'll just use this kind of the grid of the kind of width of the columns as my guide, and I can bring them in. And so if I want to resize something, in this case, let's say I want to go all the way to the edge with this image. I'm holding Shift Option Command C, which would be Shift Control Alt C, and then I can kind of go all the way. It'll punch it up to fit that size. I'll remove these images. I don't want to have too many images on a page, but let's say I wanted to have, just to show another way of doing that, if I wanted to just have, like, I don't know, the edge of this image showing, going back into Properties, I can still do my Shift Option Command or Shift Control Alt C, but I can also just go here in the frame fitting and click this fit. If you hover over, it'll tell you fill frame proportionally, fill content proportionally, which is kind of forcing it into your frame. There are all these different options that you can try out. So yeah, so that's kind of a way you can use this. But mostly what I wanted to show you with this was your master pages. And, then I can go here and add some captions. And I'll show again how to fill my captions when they're in line with the text. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So let's keep this as an example. And then let's say actually for this initial design that I had, I want to try a different grid or layout. So you see how right now they're all applied with my master. What I can do is say, actually, that was my master. I only want this for this spread here. This spread is different than the others for whatever reason. In a magazine, you would have a bunch of different spreads in reality because each article might have a slightly different way of being designed. So now I'm going to go and say new master. I want a new master page, and this one's prefix B, same height, everything. I just say okay there. And then I can make this one a different thing. So maybe in this one, the margins and column, I might also make them smaller so they kind of fit the other one. And I might make also the inside a little bigger because, again, I don't want that to get stuck in the kind of fold of the page. And I'll leave that, and then I'll create guides, but I won't, in this case, I'm not doing multiple columns. So, and I'm aligning them to the margin. Maybe I want more. It's kind of thinking of how do I make nice even squares, I guess, is just one way to think about it, so that it looks kind of good. Maybe I want a little less gutter. That seems fine to me. Now I click OK. So now, still all my pages down here are all A's. They have little A's next to them. This means that the A master is applied to this page. And for my case, if I just drag, so if I click this side of the page and drag this over, now you see this one turn into a little B. And this one still has A, so now I have to go and drag this side. And I think you can, if you shift click, you can do it to both at once. Oh, no, you have to do it individually. So now I can go in here, and I have a totally different grid set up than my other page, and I can go and say, kind of start organizing everything around that. So I'll let you all kind of figure that out for yourselves. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but you could say, oh, maybe this type, I'll edit it so that it comes into, I'm only doing it on this one, but I can just update my paragraph style, paragraph style, right click or control click, apply, no, redefine style. Now the style has been redefined to fit this. So now, you know, it's on a grid. I have my question on this thing, this kind of row of the grid, and my answer on this row. And, you know, I'll have to deal with the fact that there's more to this answer. But then I could, in this case, I could say, okay, either I could have an image that I bring in here, that I just go like this. I draw kind of on my grid. And I Command D or Control D, and I could bring in one of these images and again fit it to the frame. And so when right now it's just this, but if I double click on my image, you see how instead of just being this outline of the frame, it actually is it shows me the width of the full image. I can go within my image. I'm just holding Shift and clicking arrows in different direction, because if I don't hold Shift, it'll be 1 pixel at a time, but when I hold Shift, it's multiple pixels. So now I can do that. Just for the sake of showing you, if I want the image to be going over the type, so then I can do that here, let's say, or let's say I'll do it on the other side, because why not? Now I have it going on both sides, or maybe it'll just kind of go on either direction. Let's have, I don't know, type image going on both sides. So on this side, it's overlapping the type. So how do I deal with that? I can go over here on my right side panel, and I have all these kind of above frame fitting. I have text wrap. So right now it's saying no text wrap. If I click wrap around bounding box, suddenly it's pushing everything around. So it's kind of messed up my whole layout, but I'm just showing you how you do it. So then you have these options. If these aren't on, click these three little dots, and these more options will give you, you can add space in any corner of your image, so that now there's like some white space. I can see it's not just flush to the image. I wouldn't just put an image here on like an intro in this way normally, but I just want to show you kind of how it would go. And if you wanted to do a caption on this, as we talked about earlier, I could add more white space below. So I'm adding some space where I can have a caption, and let's say I'll make a little paragraph. I'm just going to copy something from here for the sake of time. I'm pasting it in. Oh no, it's all styled. I don't want that. I'll change it to subtitle. Okay. So now I have this. If I try and just drag it, it's not happy, obviously. It does not want that. So I can do, because it's respecting what the image has, like this border around. If I click this as its own thing, it has to be its own little text box. I go on Object, and then I go Text Frame Options, and within that, at the very bottom, I can say Ignore Text Wrap. Okay. And then when I click OK, I can then come here, align this nice and flush to my image, maybe make it neon pink. I could try and, pick this up, make it fun. Maybe it's too big, it's too close in size, type size to this, which is my intro type, so I might make it a lot smaller. I could play around with what do I feel is appropriate for a caption. I might realize, oh, this pink is too light for what I'm doing. Maybe I'll try picking up this blue, etc. So you can kind of design something and then, create your new thing, your new paragraph style, which is called caption. Another thing I haven't talked about, and I want to bring this in here, something I haven't talked about is character styles. So if you're talking about something like, I don't know, let's read something. Let's say it's Stockholm Environment Institute. If I wanted to make this italicized, I don't want to create a new paragraph style for that, but I also don't want to just change it in my type, because again, I can create different styles. I can kind of edit later on if I change my mind about what I want all my italics to be. I want them to be a different font because that's fun or whatever. I can do that. So here I'm going to hover above what I'm going to edit. So Stockholm Environment Institute, I'll make it italic. Decide that's my treatment. and I will create a character style, and then I'll call that emphasis. I'm not calling it italic just in case I change my mind and I want something else later. So now I could say everywhere in my text, I don't know, now I'm applying a character style here, emphasis. So it allows me to kind of have just these texts emphasized in this way. And later on, again, I'm just going to do it because we talked about it. I can go in my character styles, edit it. So I prefer doing it in the palette here so I can really see what I'm selecting more easily. So I'm on my emphasis. I double click it. And let's say I want to change the font family to being something totally different. I'll hit preview so I can see what I'm doing. What if I wanted to do that? I can do that very easily, and everywhere that I applied my character style will be applied. So that's a really nice use. It's a really useful thing to have when you're designing a wide amount of text. So okay, I'll undo this. This is a little crazy and it's really not a good design. So because it's just hard to read, so I'll just remove it because it's hurting my eyes, and I'll stick it here. But you could play. I'll just show. Maybe I'll make in the next video. I'll show how to incorporate images in different ways. So that's this for this one.